And we're live. Welcome, guys, to the Plebs Podcast, coming to you from the factory line of your local sweatshop. And I'd show you, but that's illegal. I'm just kidding. I'm in Florida. Anyways, today it's a solo cast with your boy E-Money. So that means, well, this is going to suck. So, or just stay tuned and I'm sure that I'll say something worth canceling me. So today we're going to talk about sweatshops, to be specific. Nope, I'm just kidding. But we are going to talk about your spiritual journey and understanding the universal laws that help you on this journey. But first, a few words from our sponsors. Okay, we have none. Plowing forward. The universal law we're going to be talking about today is the law of divine oneness. Now, if you've ever smoked DMT, then you already understand what I'm talking about. But if you haven't, here we go. So, let me try to explain it at least a little bit here, right? The law of divine oneness is the understanding that everything in the universe is connected some way or another. And meaning that there's a microphone I'm talking into and me are both made up of atoms, right? Just like everything in the universe. So you could say that's the oneness of the universe. Atoms is just an example, but the idea is that everything in the universe is connected some way, shape, or form. So what do you do with this information, right? Well, if everything's connected, then what does that mean for you, right? Well, if you're connected to the stars and you're connected to the planets, the moon, your chihuahua, I don't know, whatever you want to put out there, whatever you feel connected to, it means that it can influence you as well. So whenever you hear someone talk about their astrology, right, their astrological signs, and they were born under the Venus moon and the Sagittarius sun or some shit. But all that really means is that the planets were aligned in a certain way when you were born, and some way, shape, or form, I guess, that affects your personality. Now, does that even make sense? No, it does not. Am I making sense? No, I'm not. But back to the law of divine oneness and how this can help you on your spiritual journey, right? This law, again, is explaining that everything in the universe is connected. And if you can understand that everything is interconnected between all things, it says that we are beyond our senses. Every thought, action, and event is in some way connected to anything and everything else, right? So, with that being said, how do you apply this shit, right? This one could come off a bit heady, but applying it in real life entails being a compassionate person, right, with others. And I know that sounds like it's just something you can't do, right? Compassion, fuck off, right? Emotions, shut up. That's all I'm trying to say. And recognizing that we are all one. We're all one community. We're all one organism on this earth that are just trying to figure out what the fuck are we even doing here, right? And when you understand that we're all connected and we're all one and we're all a part of the same journey, ultimately, whether you're Joe Rogan or some homeless guy on the side of the street, at one point in your life you had to figure out what the fuck am I even doing here, and whether you answer that question or not is up to you. But hopefully understanding that you're one with everybody, then that also means that you're not alone, right? There's no such thing as being alone because you are one with everything, right? And this may again sound kind of wooky, spooky, and a little creepy, but just listen. Now, how can I, hold on, let me collect myself here before I wreck myself. But every law of the universe, and we've talked about them through a lot of the last podcasts, the law of correspondence, the law of vibration, the law of harmony and balance, right? The law of divine oneness, these are all connected somehow. So it's not only that you need to understand one law, but it's understanding all of them. Now, I've done a lot of research into this on the Google, so that means that it must be true. But, a lot of the stuff that I do research for when it comes to this, they always say that there's 12 laws, right? I'm not going to go through every single one of those because we're going to cover them in other podcasts, right? But today, we're covering the law of divine oneness. Now, how do you practice this law, right? Well, it's first an understanding, right? Again, the concept of oneness is not new. In fact, it's been in spiritual teaching for thousands of years. I mean, there's ancient Hindu texts, such as the Upanishad. I have no idea if I'm saying that right, and if I am, I'm honestly surprised. And speak of the unity of all things and the relationship between the individual soul and the universal soul. And similarly, Buddhist concepts have the same exact idea of this law of divine unity, right? If that helps you a little bit try to understand. But again, the law of divine oneness, the law of divine unity, the law of go fuck yourself, they're all the same thing, right? And what this really affirms, again, is that you're connected with everything beyond the physical realm. And that's including our thoughts, our emotions, and even our spiritual experiences, right? And when we recognize this oneness, we begin to understand that our actions have a butterfly effect, right? Again, going back to the law of harmony, or the law of correspondence, especially the law of correspondence, is, understanding how our thoughts and our emotions and everything correspond with our physical realm that we're living in. And one of the hardest things that's been hard for me to understand about all this shit is how much slower the physical realm moves than your, both your mental and your spiritual realm, or you can call it emotional if you want. But ultimately, how do you practice this? Well, you can develop a self-awareness. Now, the reason for this, and this helps with every single law, with your self-awareness and your understanding of your internal self, it can only help you, one, understanding other people. Because once you understand yourself, you can then see yourself in other people, right? And if you ever notice who your friends are, or who you're, maybe sleeping in bed with, right, every night, whether it's your mama or your mommy, doesn't matter who it is. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we're all connected. And there was a point there, but I don't remember what it was. So let's go ahead and keep moving forward. Another thing you can do to actually apply this law of divine oneness to everyday life is you can use compassion and empathy, right? Again, understanding that we're all one, we're all connected. There's a little piece of me and you, and there's a big piece of me and my ex-wife last weekend. But ultimately, there's a big piece. And so you have to use this compassion and empathy in everyday life. And it's a hard thing to do sometimes, because sometimes you're looking at someone and you're like, dude, there's another problem. Dude, you're just manifesting this shit because you're an asshole. No, that's not compassion. That's definitely not empathy, right? Now, the beautiful thing about all of these, right, as I'm going through these, is these can all be learned. You're not born with empathy, right? You're born as a blank canvas. So, with that being said, you can learn how to be empathetic towards other people. And also, empathy is not sympathy. Sympathy is, oh, I'm so sorry. That sucks that happened for you. Empathy is, I understand what you're going through because I've been in your shoes before. Oh, man, she cheated on you? I know exactly what you're going through, right? My ex-girlfriend cheated on me too. I don't know, whatever the fuck you want to say, but ultimately, it's a understanding that there is a oneness between me and you, right? And you can find that in any person you have a conversation with. You can find some glimmer of agreeance, right? And with that being said, right, I don't want people to take what I'm saying and go, oh, so you're saying that everybody is like me, right? Well, hell no, not everyone is like you. And I don't want to say you're unique. We're not special, but there was definitely a low likelihood of us being here. So that has to account for something, right? But let's go ahead and move on to the next one because I forgot where I was going with that. But anyways, next one actually, and this is actually a pretty big one, is embrace unity in diversity. Now this is where I feel that this law can be hard for some people or a lot of people. I really don't know, but we'll just say some people, right? Is when you say diversity, right? The first thing that come to mind is a room full of different types of people, right? That's diversity. But then understanding that there's still a glimmer of unity within that, right? You all can have a conversation. Anybody can make a joke. People can make other people laugh no matter what culture you're from. You just have to understand it, right? So if you can embrace this unity through diversity, you're only building into that law of divine oneness, and the universe will only give back tenfold. But first, you have to be pushing through trials and tribulations. That's one of the laws we were talking about last week. I believe it was the law of balance, and then what was it? Who cares? But ultimately, just if you can embrace the unity in uncomfortable situations, if you can take this law and you can apply it to, okay, me and this person have nothing in common, but yet everything and everyone is made of the same substances. So some way, shape, or form we can get along. I can have empathy for this person. I can have compassion for this person, even if you don't look like me and you don't talk like me, yet we are still one with each other in this universe. I should have dropped the mic on that one, but I don't want to break it. I just bought it, so it was pretty expensive. Anyways, the next thing is be grateful, right? And this one is easy. Gratitude is one of the easiest things that you could do. Just say thank you to yourself. How often do people tell you thank you? Really, take assessment of that. How often do you tell people thank you? Or I appreciate you? Or I appreciate what you did for me? Right? If you can be grateful, you're filled with a feeling of abundance, of happiness, joy, love. I mean, gratefulness is such a big thing in your spiritual journey of manifestation. If you can stay grateful even through times when there might not seem to be a lot grateful for, that's just only the time that the universe is putting trials and tribulations in front of you. And by the time you push through that, and you can continue to feel abundant, you can continue to be grateful, you can continue to embrace this unity in diversity, you'll only be a better person for it. And the universe will give you what you want because you've proved to it that you want it. That's all you have to do. Just like your body, the universe loves consistency, right? It's not about discipline. It's not about, I just did 5,000 million push-ups yesterday. I ran 400,000 miles today. Who cares? Because when we all die, you can't do a push-up anyways, right? Now, I'm not telling you not to work out. I'm just saying, there's a give and take. There's a balance to these things. There's a harmony. Now, last thing I have to say about the law of divine oneness and how you can practice this and apply it in your everyday life is live mindfully, right? What does that mean? What the hell does living mindfully mean? Well, according to Google, I'm just kidding. It just really means that you're acting in a deliberate manner. You're acting with intention. You're just moving forward. You're always moving. There's always something more that you can do to push and move forward towards your goal. And then something that I've been actually struggling with a lot recently is, how do you know enough is enough? Right? How do you know that you've reached this goal? Right? Because what happens when you reach a goal? You start the next one, right? When do you stop? You don't. That's the point, right? Because if goals are meant to make you feel good, why would you stop that, right? Now, this doesn't mean you need to make goals that are easy, right? And this also doesn't mean that you need to make goals that are so unattainable that you can never complete anything, right? Because you're just so overwhelmed by the how the hell am I even going to get here feeling. But if you can act in a mindful way, deliberately, with intention, you're always just moving forward. Doesn't matter how slow, how fast, you don't have an emotion to it. You're just here doing it. You love the process. Then you'll always be successful. If you can fall in love with the process, then you will always be successful, right? You hear every successful athlete say this. You hear LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan. How do you become the best basketball player? You fall in love with the sport, right? You fall in love with sitting outside every night for 10 hours every day, whatever it may be, just shooting a basketball into a hole. That's it, right? And you love that to death, and that's the way that you get better, is through obsession. That's the only way that you can get where you want to go, is an obsession. And this isn't me saying that you have to be obsessed, that you have to be overly obsessed when I say that too. Meaning, if you can't get to it today, then you feel like you're a horrible person. That's overly obsessed. But obsessed is still going, damn, I didn't get it done today. That's okay, but I'm still going to get it done tomorrow, right? And that's not even discipline, it's consistency. And you see how all of these things are intertwined with each other. They all are the same thing, trying to get you to the same goal, whatever that may be. So, with that being said, that's the law of divine oneness. And I do hope that they can help you understanding that and in your spiritual journey. And I do have a couple other things. We're going to go off into little tangents here today, little extra topics. First one today I just wanted to talk about was a little bit of a realization I had recently. Well, I've got a baby now, right? And, so one first thing they never tell you is, well, how slow they grow up. No, I'm just kidding. How much they shit. God damn it, they never tell you how much they shit. All they do all day is shit, and then, you guessed it, shit again. But one thing that I thought was interesting was about our baby, was the fact that they eat while they sleep, right? And god damn it, I wish I could do that because it's so much more efficient. But wait, there's more. It turns out that people do sleep and eat at the same time. Think about it. You have the person that wakes up in the middle, or doesn't wake up, right? They sleepwalk in the middle of the night and they cook a whole turkey. And then they wake up that next morning and there's a half-eaten turkey cooked on their fucking dining room table. And you're like, who the hell robbed my house, didn't take anything, and cooked a turkey, and then ate half of it? I didn't even have a turkey in the first place. But I just thought that was an interesting little realization that I had earlier this week, is that we've been eating while we sleep our whole life. Why do we stop now? Right? Just sleep, eat, and shit. That's all we need to do. So everything else on top of that is you. You added that. You made that shit more overwhelming. You're the one that made all these goals. You're the one that made this so much more complicated than it had to be, because when you realize that we come into this world nothing. We come into this world as a blank canvas. We come into this world eating, sleeping, and shitting all at the same time. You're welcome. So, that was a little realization that I had that I found a little bit interesting, but we'll go ahead and move forward. Next topic I wanted to talk about today was Silk Road. Why not? Thought it was interesting. Now, Silk Road, what the fuck was it? It was a massive drug online market. Think Amazon, but better. Alright? All they sold was drugs. And I think there was guns. Don't think they sold people. Nope, they didn't sell guns. Remember, that was one thing they didn't like to do. The guy who started it, something Ulbricht was his last name. Now, by the time Albright was arrested, who was again the creator of Silk Road, on October 1st, 2013, Silk Road had accrued a $214 million in Bitcoin sales. And again, that was in 2013 Bitcoin. So that's like 5 pennies a share. A coin. Sorry, we're not talking about IBM. Now, this whole thing, it operated on the dark web. Ooh. It was a Tor browser. Was required for its anonymity, right? So that was the thing that drew people was, well, you have no idea who's buying it. I don't know who I'm buying it from, but yet they have a 5-star review. And that's what made Silk Road so popular, was the fact that that Albright added reviews to the drug dealers. So if someone OD'd, they give them a 1-star review. Wait, no, I don't think you could OD and then give a 1-star review, but maybe, I don't know how the review system would work. I guess it'd only be 5 stars, right? So you only get the good stars. So then if you don't have any stars or any reviews, maybe that means you're a shitty drug dealer, because it means everyone died. I don't know. But anyways, in his early life, Albright, he had a lot of libertarian beliefs, in the sense that no government should tell me what I put into my own body. Silk Road was created. And Albright would leave little digital breadcrumbs along his way that ended up actually getting him caught. One was when he was actually hiring employees, he left his real email. Yes, I just said that. A criminal mastermind left his real email for hiring people for his illegal drug pushing website, and then promoted it on a Bitcoin forum as basically an anonymous Amazon.com for drugs, calling himself Altoid, which he would later change to Frosty, which was actually one of the names that his employees would use to refer to him. You can see how he'd get caught this way. Now, I want to say it was about a year into this, or maybe about 6 months into this, he ended up getting Silk Road publicized on a bunch of blogs, websites, and it attracted a bunch of users overnight, right? And Albright immediately changed his identity, smart man, and basically, what made them so popular and what made them so successful for quote unquote so long, because I think ultimately Silk Road only lasted like 2 years, but the actual shelf life of these types of businesses are like 2 months before they either, steal everyone's money, run away, or get, raided by the SWAT team. But that was horrible. But anyways, what they would do is they would ship like one LSD tablet in like a little CD holder in one manila envelope instead of selling it in bulk. So let's say you bought 50 acid tablets, right? So then one day you'd go on Silk Road, you'd buy 50 of them. A month later, there'd be 50 separate boxes waiting on your doorstep, all of them with acid. And probably a really good rock band that you'd want to listen to while you watch acid. Something with, I don't know, a lot of drums. I don't know what makes acid go. Anyways, and basically how they were able to find the sellers, and what they would do to make it seem more professional is they would actually print out the shipping labels, and they wouldn't write them, right, like with your hands, freehand. And that's how the cops ended up tracking down their sellers, right? And it was actually the suspicion over these printed labels that even started the feds looking into ultimately Silk Road in the first place. Now, a DEA agent is the first one to kind of investigate these packages, and he goes undercover as code names. I think it was Sirius. And one of Albright's employees who got arrested without Albright's knowledge, and they flipped him, right? And the DEA agent went undercover as this guy. And as Silk Road is growing in attention, again, Albright is leaving these little trails along the way. He gave out his real his real email address attached to an account called Altoid that he later changed to Frosty, which is what they used to, which is what the employees used to even refer to him, right? That's how they talked to him. And so how they ended up catching this motherfucker was a little Google search. An IRS agent thought, if there's this many people that are listening to it, then there had to be some type of publicity before the initial, quote-unquote, initial publicity that really skyrocketed them off, right? So, this IRS agent he was looking for, little people talking about the website before these news articles released talking about Silk Road, right? And he did a little Google search and he found the earlier post with his dumbass email on it. And then Googled his ass and found his LinkedIn with a damn Unabomber manifest as his description. But as if that's not obvious enough, his earlier post, Altoid, is then changed to Frosty, right? And again, I've said this a few times, and that's kind of the thing that really got him, was because then the DA agent was able to flip Sirius and was able to talk back and forth with Ross Albright, who allegedly tried to put a hit out on a bunch of different people, and he was actually talking to this DEA agent whenever he was trying to tell people to kill a bunch of people and shit, which is, you can't do, I guess. So then the IRS, DEA, and for some reason the Secret Service make a task force to arrest him in a public library, where he'll hopefully be working on his Silk Road, and luckily enough for them, he was, and he's an idiot. So there he was, working on his highly illegal drug smuggling website in a public library, and these two agents are off on the side and they fake like they're a couple, a man and woman fighting. And the woman yells, "Fuck you!" to her baby daddy, and he looked, Ross Albright did, and as soon as he looked, just like the man was about to hit her, boom, he gets tackled like he was on the 1-yard line on a Super Bowl Sunday. He tried to close his computer, but he couldn't reach it, and another star was taken down by the man. Now we have to go behind McDonald's to get our crack, not a silky Amazon. Wasn't sure if that worked. Didn't. Well, at least I tried. Anyways, he was ultimately arrested in the library, right? He was found guilty and sentenced. And this was actually what was kind of interesting to me. There was 2 points that were interesting in this story. Was there were a few corrupt officers that were exposed along the way. A DEA agent and a Secret Service agent who both took payoffs to actually sabotage the investigation in Bitcoin, which they later got raped and killed in prison, I'm sure. And I just thought that was kind of interesting, kind of helped him along the way, right? It's, it's kind of something you always hear about in the stories, or in the movies and the TV shows, but I don't know, I just, like, when you hear about all these corrupt cops and shit, I think it's just interesting, right? And so, with Silk Road comes a little conspiracy theory. Now, hold please. Now, this conspiracy theory goes a little something like this. Bitcoin started, and I believe it was 07, if I'm not mistaken, or 08, maybe? Maybe it was 09, probably 10. Anyways, I'm going to stop there for your guys' amusement. Now, if you remember, Silk Road sold about $14 million worth of drugs and other stuff in Bitcoin, right? So that means that these people had to buy $214 million worth of Bitcoin. Now, at this point, Bitcoin had been around for, I don't know, maybe 5 to 6 years, right? And I believe it had gone from, a penny at this point to maybe $10, right? Whenever Silk Road was started, which I believe it was started in 2010 or 2011. And it's believed that the reason he used Bitcoin was because he was enticed to by that Satoshi Nakafuku guy that came up with Bitcoin in the first place, to then make Bitcoin a big thing, because then after 2013, right, when Silk Road closes down, all these other type of drug markets open up, all they'd use is Bitcoin. Why do you think that is? Is it for the anonymity of Bitcoin? Well, no. Hell, we've seen it with Doge, Shiba, Inu, and Ethereum. You can create your own coin, and Moon Coin, and Elon Coin, and Dog Coin, and fucking Weed Coin. It's my favorite kind of coin. But, why would these people just have people buy with their own coin? Or another coin? Why does it have to be Bitcoin? Right? And that's the question that I ask. I smell a conspiracy afoot, right? And I don't know. I just think that it's like, that's a lot of fucking shit with Bitcoin, and all of a sudden now, like, that's what we're going to be using, right? So I think that there was a little bit of enticement from one side to the other to make you, get after it. Now, plowing forward. Next thing I like to talk about today is, I believe his name is Ignaz Semmelweis. As you can imagine, he's a German fellow. And this is the man who cured perpetual fever, or childbed fever. Now, this was actually an epidemic throughout the 1800s. And it killed 1 in 4 mothers. So in other words, this man is the reason you're alive. There is no cure or any way to identify it, right? And what made it worse was science. This was the first thing where anytime you threw a syringe at it, you threw chemicals at it, you threw a bunch of smart people at it, it only got worse. It only killed them faster and worse, right? And it would only affect mothers. Hence, childbed syndrome, right? And he was later called a martyr to the world's stupidity, Semmelweis. He was later called the savior of mothers. And he was later found dead in an insane asylum. Interesting. Now, Ignaz worked at a Vienna hospital, a teaching hospital, a lot like Grey's Anatomy, right? Or Scrubs, if you like that one. And he would, every morning, he would show his class him dissecting a newly dead mother in front of his class. And he would, cut them open, no gloves, raw dogging it, as they used to call it back in the day. And he would show them the inflated organs of these, newly dead mothers. And this is what, like, perpetual fever would do to you. It would inflate your organs and give you an intense fever, a psychosis. You'd have, basically, your body would heat you to death. Ha! See what I did there? Anyways, and he would do this every day. Every single day. And at one point, the other doctors would describe going to the hospital, a little process like this: diagnose, operate, dissect. Diagnose, operate, death, dissect. Right? That was the process. You come into the hospital, you're dead. You walking out, you're a lucky motherfucker, don't come back. That's all I'm trying to say. Now, his first problem to solve was, well, one wing of the hospital would contract it and the other wouldn't. under almost the same circumstances. One side of the hospital was only doctors and nurses and of these folk, and then one side was midwives and nurses. So why was it that the side with all the doctors, who are supposed to be better at this because of their extinguished degrees, why is it that all of their wing is getting the disease but not the other wing? I mean, it would even get to the point where women that were giving birth knew this and would understand that they would actually send the women on a schedule. So, like, Monday, everyone goes to the left, which is the wing that everyone dies on, right? And then Tuesday, everyone goes to the right. The Wednesday, you go to the left. And then it just goes on like this cycle forever. And women would understand that this is how it worked. And they would try to time their births, which obviously you can't really do. So it was just luck of the draw. And it even got to a point where a lot of these women were giving day births. And just basically all that is exactly what you think it would be, is women would just give birth out in the middle of the street because it was safer to do that. You were more likely to survive because then you go to the hospital with a delivered baby and guess where they send you? To the right, where you live. So, you know, it makes sense that, I would want to be there on a Tuesday instead of a Monday too, right? And he looked at everything from the forceps they would use in the delivery to the ventilation system in each side of the hospital. And he eventually got to a point where he theorized that there was some type of invisible force that must have been affecting these women. And he used the logic, if you can smell it, it must be there. So he would, start a procedure by washing his clothes of the doctor and have new linens for his patients with a chloride lime water mix. And in about 6 years, he saw that the left side of the hospital began to actually have less deaths than the right side of the hospital. But his research was highly scrutinized. Give me 1 second, please. And his research was actually highly scrutinized because medicine at this point was about scientific advancement over patient care. Now let me stop right there, right before we continue talking about this story, because I actually do genuinely have an opinion on this. I believe that we wouldn't have medicine where it is today if we wouldn't have gone through that period of where it doesn't really matter about patient care and it just matters for us to figure out what the fuck is making everyone die. What is a fever? Like, if you think about it, at one point we didn't even know what a fever was. You probably thought that you were being possessed. Seriously, genuinely, people probably thought that. I don't know, but I'm just an idiot. But, ultimately, his research was scrutinized only because he put patient care first. Meaning, they didn't really care if the women died because they had a baby, right? And they didn't really care about the patient's well-being if it meant we were going to, cattle prod you with every needle and cranny and granny and even trannies. Oh, there it is. I'm canceled. So, with that being said, I truly believe that we needed this period of scientific advancement so we can be where we are today. Now, that does not mean by any meanings of that I'm saying it's not important for patient care. I believe that's where we are now in medicine. And if you believe that now and you practice medicine now, you should be disbarred or whatever it's called for doctors. And so he was, again, highly scrutinized because medicine at this point didn't give a shit about the patient. They only cared about the scientific advancement. So if our patients are surviving, but you can't tell me why he survived, then who cares? That's the thought process, right? So, again, meaning it was better to let them die and then figure out what killed them. So, they could research that and then basically try to figure out how to, cure it in the first place. So how dare you blame the doctors? How dare you blame the nurses? The most highly respected con artists of all time. Right? You're just a glorified pharmaceutical salesman to me. That's all you are. And I'm shameless about that opinion. But his boss hated him for it. His boss would tell the other students not to follow what he said because it was useless. Boy, was he wrong. Then they canned Semmelweis's ass. And the reason for this actually is because there was a study in Prague to see if his research was right, and they did it wrong. They actually, and the reason they would do it wrong was because they would only clean their hands when they were working on dead bodies. How does that make sense? Right? And so they would still have perpetual fever in all these women because they didn't change anything at all, but they're saying that they're going by this Semmelweis, this guy, going off of his data. Now, they did the procedures wrong, so of course his theory was, untheorized by other people. And a lot of that, again, they applied it to dead people, blase, right? And they completely fucked up his life and made him look like a fool to the eyes of his peers. And once he grew into his 20s and 30s, he actually began to go insane. He started to slowly lose his mind because of the consistent ridicule and lack of the following of the procedure by the other staff members, that he would just burst out in a cursing and everyone go fuck yourself because you're idiots and I'm always right kind of mentality, right? And you work around this person long enough, well, you hate him, right? And he would always get these outbreaks at all these hospitals he worked at because people wouldn't listen to him. Whenever it turns out, he was right all along. And by the end of his life, he would go around in the street and he would debate with random people about his theory. And he would just walk up to some random person, and again, in the 1800s, not everyone knew how to read, write, or even talk or shit in a toilet. Right? And so he would go up to random people and talk about his theory, and he would go debate me, tell me why I'm wrong. And it's like, dude, I don't even speak your language, man. I know what you're telling me right now. What does that say? I can't read it. I don't know. What is read? Anyways. I'm sure there was something in there, but fuck it. Anyways. He died at 47 in an insane asylum. And he actually ended up dying from the same exact type of infection that he dedicated his life to defending. How ironic is that? 2 days before he died, a man named Joe Lister used Semmelweis's some concoction he made for antisepsis, right? And what they would do is they would spray the incisions with some type of cleaning agent before they would go in, right? And then Joe Lister ended up finding this successful, leading to the invention of what, people? Listerine! So, you can thank Semmelweis for two things. Listerine and your mother. I'm definitely thanking him for your mother because of last night. Hey-o. Anyways, that was stupid. All right, who cares? So, yeah. Anyways. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say about that. And thank you for anybody that listens ever tuning out. Bye-bye.